it's a fine dance. It's a fine art, those negotiations. It's like you can't get steamrolled over. You also need to be tough at certain points, but also need to let things go to reach that win-win resolution.
Hello and welcome back to In the House podcast, where we discuss all things related to strategies and tips in running a real estate business. I'm your host, Jenny.
And I'm Toni.
And we are here to talk about real estate negotiations, putting aside your ego for a successful deal.
I love this topic so much. I love it. Why are we talking about this today, Jenny? Have you found in your career that this has been something that's come up a lot over time, or?
I'm sure it does because, you kind of get competitive naturally. I think it comes part of the nature of the job. I also feel like we're always encountering like opposite, like opponents, and so the ego does show up in many ways on the other side too.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because the art of the real estate transaction and negotiations overall, you've got one party as the seller at one end and of the spectrum, and then a different party as the buyer and their representations, right, on the other side. So in order to bring them together, there's a lot of things that can happen emotionally along that way. And so love the topic for today because occasionally we can have certain things come up, maybe even within ourselves, right? Sometimes with other agents and or the client, where ego can get in the way of reaching a successful outcome for all parties. And so Jenny actually put together the notes for today, and it was off of a scenario that I had told you about, right?
Oh yes, it didn't happen too long ago.
A recent one where
let's talk about what actual ego is, because we talk about it quite often. And it is, I guess, a psychological term when it comes to talking about someone's self-esteem or their entitlement or their self-importance. And so it can come, I guess it comes between the conscious and subconscious mind, and really does relate to an individual person's, I guess, self-worth and their sense of self. So I want to just make sure that everybody understands that an ego can be inherently like negative or positive. And it just really depends on how you can navigate that through your nervous system.
And here's the other thing too. We all are born with egos. That's what it is to be human. That's just a part of it.
So yeah, go ahead. I've interrupted you.
No, that was an important feature. So thank you for bringing that up. So what prompted this episode is that I recently had a very interesting experience in a real estate deal that I was working on.
She wasn't happy.
But so here's the thing, just to give you guys some context. I was the buyer's agent in this scenario. It was not my listing. And in this particular context, I was dealing with a listing agent who I found very, very difficult. Now, there's a difference. There's a difference because ultimately, both realtors in a transaction need to protect their clients, right? But what I noticed is that this person would purposefully, in the negotiations, either try to talk down to me, belittle me, get angry about the situation, and blame it on either the other party being the buyer or you know what I mean? And it could have been his negotiation strategy.
Pointing outwards.
And so the reason, and actually this has happened in another scenario too recently where I was the listing realtor, but we'll just talk about this one for now because this is what prompted the episode. And so Jenny and I were discussing in these scenarios where you're negotiating and the ego from somebody involved in the transaction comes out. How do you successfully navigate around that to have a successful win-win outcome for yourself, your clients ultimately is the most important thing. And, the seller wants to sell, buyer wants to buy. How do you reach that without the emotions getting in the way?
Well, I often find that being able to check in with yourself, and also being really compassionate on seeing how the other person is reacting, being very self-aware, right?
Mhm.
And I'm assuming that in this situation, perhaps the other party, the other agent was not very self-aware of what they were doing.
I mean, it was okay. So, as an example, when we were going through this process, like, I understand and I get it. My initial response that lasted for maybe a second was to feel that emotion and be angry about it,
Mhm.
right? Because I can't even, because I don't wanna give a lot of information about what specifically happened because we don't like to say negative things about people in our industry. But I'll tell you what did happen. Each time I felt as though this agent was purposely either trying to bait me or get
Mm.
the result that they wanted, which is just they weren't helping at all. They also weren't doing their job and weren't providing the information that we asked for.
Right.
Okay. So that's a professional thing as well. But each time I just let it go.
That
That was difficult.
did it actually piss that person off even more?
This is what was interesting. So there was a few times I just let it go and it kind of neutralized the situation. That's hard though. That takes a lot of emotional intelligence because what I realized was this person is acting out
Mm.
at me because I'm on the other side of it, but it actually has nothing to do with me.
Mhm.
It actually has 100% to do with this person, and that's why they're doing it that way.
This person being that agent that
Yeah,
has
sorry, I'm
the
not trying to
ego.
talk in code, but it's going to open up some conversations
Right.
about this.
Okay.
And then occasionally when I also wanted a positive result for my client, I had to be like, when it's a fine dance, it's a fine art, those negotiations. It's like you can't get steamrolled over. You also need to be tough at certain points, but also need to let things go to reach that win-win resolution. I did have to resort to complimenting him a few times because listen, and I don't mean this in a negative way. It's like if I need to work through those negative emotions and see something positive that you're doing on the other side and give you props for that, I will.
Well, it
And I
must.
did, and it worked.
Let's before we get into those examples, why it's so important to, I guess, let go of this ego or soften this ego is to be able to help build better relationships.
Mhm.
And so by putting your ego aside, you achieve this greater success, ultimately reaching the goal of getting to the end result of helping your clients, right?
Yeah, and they were super, super happy. Very incredibly happy. But this person in industry is known for being very difficult to work with. It's a common thing. We actually work very well together now because
Because you keep complimenting this person.
no, compliments where deserved,
Mhm.
possibly not even deserved, but it's like, okay, sure, I could see a positive in this situation. And diffusing the negative energy around the ego stuff where this person wanted a response from me, but it would have absolutely plummeted the negotiations. My clients would not have had the result that they wanted. Would my clients get the result that they wanted, which was to purchase this home, if my ego got in the way?
Mhm. Mhm.
No.
No.
It would have made it a lot more difficult. And so I am pleased to say my clients purchased this property. They probably already made $100,000 on this property, and it was just
Thanks to
sold a
you.
couple
Yeah.
weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm really pleased that I was able to stay calm. But Jenny, how about you? I mean, you've been in the industry for so long. Can you give an example of a situation where there was an ego or something in a situation, negotiations, what have you, that came out and how you dealt with it to reach that win-win outcome?
Okay. This was less than a year ago. So I brought my client, who is the seller, an offer.
Mhm.
And let's just say I forgot what the number was, but I'm gonna just for example, the listing was like 1.5 million.
Mhm.
The buyer brought in an offer at 1.35, for example. Okay.
Mhm.
So it went back and forth, went back and forth. I think it got a little bit tiresome.
Yeah.
Of course, as agents, our job is just to coach and handhold through this situation. So I think the normal reaction is that's my highest. Like the buyer is like, that's my highest I could go, right?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
there's a lot of factors that I'm not representing the buyer again.
Yeah.
This is coming from the buyer's agent. So uh, this is the message I passed on to the seller. unfortunately, that's their highest. So the deal went dead.
Mhm.
I would say a couple days later, they came back with a little bit more money.
Mhm.
So let's just say another 50,000. The reaction from my seller with an ego said, "Oh, I thought their highest price was 139 or something like that." And does that get us anywhere?
No.
Well, during that time, perhaps they were able to ask for more money. Maybe they negotiated a better rate to be able to get a higher purchasing power. That reaction from my seller just irked me.
So this is a perfect example, Jenny, of how within a real estate transaction, multiple egos can show up. And we're
Yeah.
literally navigating, I want to call it a storm
Mhm.
when that happens, especially if you're not going to get involved in that.
Right. So here's the thing. I could have also, my ego could have shown and said, you didn't want to move. Like, why would you even give me that response? Number
Right.
one. And my ego would have said to me, my story would have been, oh, shoot, I didn't do a good enough job negotiating.
Yeah.
Or
Because you're making it about you.
I'm making it about myself. Like, I didn't do a good enough way of negotiating. I didn't put all the full like story on the table for my seller to make a decision. Or I could have said to my seller, well, you're the one that didn't want to, or pointed out to my seller that you're not being very effective right now.
Like placing blame.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
In the way he responded. All I simply said, without, any judgment or anything, I just said, they're just coming back with a new offer. I otherwise I could have said, well, why are you being like this? Why are you being like that? Or I could have resisted this
Focusing
reaction
on the bigger
from my
picture is what
seller.
you were doing, right?
Yes.
The bigger picture being, are you going to sell to these people if they end up coming up to the price that you want?
Mhm.
Or are you going to hold it against them that they offered you a low ball before, you rejected it? I mean, the win-win here is that they actually came up in price. So let's
Mhm.
see if we can either get more, or if you don't
Right.
want to sell it to them, then that's fine.
Right. I could have easily put it on myself and because I feel like that seller almost made me look like a liar.
Oh, I see.
Right. So the way the seller was putting it was, well, why didn't you try to get more before they left the table?
Yeah.
Right. So I kind of felt like this seller was actually thinking that I was lying this whole time. And I've always said to even my team, we're working for the seller.
Yeah.
We don't try to convince the seller
That's right.
or buyer, to like lower not stoop to the story, but to really be more compassionate and have like a win-win situation.
Mm-hmm. So what ended up happening? Did you end up reaching an
Putting it
agreement?
together.
Yeah.
There were still about, I want to say 60,000 apart,
Mm-hmm.
and it still didn't work out. But I also feel like it's karma.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. You know what? This reminds me of a scenario, speaking of ego, that I had last year as well with one of my sellers. And it's so funny because when the similar scenario, but when the buyer came back at a higher price, they weren't taking it out on me, but they were just kind of like, oh, well, they offered me so low before. I'm not going to deal with them now. And it's like, hold on a second. Let's just take a step back. Do you still want to sell your home? If we can get the price that you are happy selling at, would that make you happy today? Yes. And so, based on the yes, it doesn't matter what they did before.
Mhm.
Let's counter it to where you're comfortable and see if we can get it to come together.
Mhm.
But it's really interesting how ego shows up.
Mm. So, how can ego show up for real estate agents or really anybody?
In a real estate transaction. I mean, it's related to life too.
Yes. So it can show up in many ways. So we're
Mhm.
going to list 6 of them for you listeners. Number 1 is the overconfidence.
Mhm.
And what happens during overconfidence, you end up kind of lacking attention to detail and almost taking into like unnecessary risks that wasn't really there to begin with. And so what I mean by that is you're overconfident in your abilities, you're overconfident in your experience, and that kind of shuts maybe the other person kind of down
Mhm.
because there's that fight that you're always trying to prove
That's
to
right.
yourself, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Which leads us into number 2, resistance to feedback.
Mm.
What do we mean by that? So the ego can make it very difficult for, I mean, if we're talking about real estate agents to accept feedback or constructive criticism.
Mhm.
What can that do? I mean, if you're in that state, this could lead to missed opportunities for growth and improvements, and even missed opportunities for um, the highest good of your next client. If you're
Mhm.
not willing to see that, that's a really
Right.
costly mistake to make.
Right. The third one is when someone takes things too personally. And so,
Mhm.
again, it can lead to conflict. It can lead to missed opportunities for collaboration. And I would say it happens all the time when maybe you have trauma
Yeah.
from the past, PTSD. And so many times it triggers you
Mhm.
from your childhood wounds.
Yeah, we need to have an episode on that one day.
Oh, I have a lot to talk
Let's
about
talk
on
about
that.
that another day for sure in detail.
Mhm.
I love what you said there. Number 4 is difficulty. If the ego is in the way, there can be difficulty admitting mistakes. We're not perfect. Humans are meant to make mistakes
Mhm.
and fail forward.
Mhm.
So, a consequence of this can be not taking responsibility for your actions,
Mhm.
which can erode trust and relationships with other real estate colleagues, clients, team members. So really what I'm seeing in this conversation is that ego could be everywhere, right? Not just real estate negotiations, but
Right.
our framework here is the negotiation.
Right.
Mhm.
Um, Another one where an ego can show up is the need for recognition.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually just had this happen to me where a person wanted to receive affirmations first
Mhm.
before receiving feedback.
Mm.
And I'm like, well,
I know who you're talking about.
so obviously this can lead to more like personal gains than rather than the client. And so I want to, yeah, it just really irked me because I would give compliments if there would be good work provided, but also
Yeah.
um, that's your job is to actually just do good. So
Yeah.
when you are looking for recognition, I find it really hard to validate your achievements if there has been none provided. And maybe that's my ego.
100%. No, because we're both hard workers, so you wanna make sure that you're doing a good job first, and then you would expect, like, sure, if you've gone over and above, acknowledgement is great,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But I think that probably speaks to your work ethic too.
And also the need for recognition or the need for
Constant
affirmations
approval.
is again a PTSD thing. Like it's a childhood wound where perhaps you constantly need to be nurtured
Mhm.
to feel good about the transaction.
Yeah, for sure. Good, pick up there. I didn't even think about that.
Mhm.
This is a really sneaky one. Uh, it's
Sneaky.
so sneaky, you guys. And I have been guilty of this in the past. I'm sure most of us have. And if you haven't, then you're probably lying. Comparison with others.
Good one. Yeah.
Comparison with others. That is 100% ego. And what does that do? Honestly, it can lead to feelings of insecurity or competitiveness. I say competitiveness not in a positive way because I believe that there can be healthy competition.
Mhm.
Um, and, if you're only thinking about how you are in this situation compared to others, that automatically detracts from your power and abilities
Mhm.
to help your clients.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I don't know. Did we miss any here? What
No, that's
other? I think
already
that's it.
that's a lot of ways that an ego can show up.
Yeah.
Have you read the book by Ryan Holiday?
No, I haven't.
That book,
What's it called?
it's called quickly, Ego is the Enemy.
Oh, that
If you're
sounds
looking for a
interesting.
really quick read, and it's actually a very short one on Audible, it's actually a really, really good book. And it does provide you with attacking or trying to be more aware of how and where your ego shows up.
Mhm.
So Ryan Holiday, Ego is the Enemy, a very good book to read. Let's go into, yeah, let's go into just some strategies that are often, maybe some people don't know how to manage their ego,
Mhm.
and putting aside their ego so that they can actually just focus on getting the job done, getting the
Mhm.
deal done.
Mhm.
So you mentioned the first one was complimenting.
I mean, it can be, yeah.
Can you give us some clear examples of the compliments you provided to get that transaction done?
Sure. I think it's also important to keep in mind that when dealing with an agent who has a major ego, it's very important to stay focused only on the facts.
Mhm.
Okay. And also the details of the deal. Try to avoid getting caught up in your personal feelings or emotions. I think we covered that. But in doing that, I was able to notice a
Mhm.
compliment or like provide something good feedback to this listing agent. And one of the things that I had said to him or her was, you know what? I know how hard you're working.
Ooh, so subtle. I love it.
Well,
Okay. Very subtle. That's a compliment.
I know how
Compliment
hard
number
you're
1.
working.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
would appreciate it, right? You have to kind
Okay.
of pat it with something, but it helped because this person, I think, really just wanted to feel validated. It was like when acknowledged this person's work, it was a bit of a different. It changed the nuances of the relationship.
Mhm. And when as soon as you gave that compliment, did you notice the shift in the energy
I
and the
did,
dialogue
I
with
did, but
you?
that's because I was dealing with an ego. I
Okay.
was directly dealing with the ego of
Mhm.
this person.
Mhm.
So it was a little bit easier to deal with this person after the acknowledgement and the compliment that they were working so hard.
Right.
I mean, mind you, they didn't get me the information I needed. I still
You
needed to
still
do
had
their job for them.
right.
But
Right. But kinda let that wall down a little bit
yeah,
because
I think he or she was doing their best
right.
with the tools that they had at the
Okay.
time.
Okay. And so another strategy uh, is finding the common ground. And
Mhm.
perhaps that's maybe what you did was you just ended up doing that work and kind of um, it wasn't part of your responsibility, but you find the common ground of just getting the job done. And that way, rather than saying, that's your role, this is my responsibility, I'm not going to do this, you just made it into a more collaborative experience, right?
Yeah, I wanted to make it happen for my client. This is what
Right.
they said they wanted.
Right. And so you did deliver. And also I feel like it's also your personality and my personality too, is that we're just type A and we just get to the resource, get to this go to a
Yes.
straight line and get it done.
Listen, if I was gonna respond to his ego with my ego,
Mhm.
do you know what I could have said, which would have tanked everything?
No, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, or "Why are you being so lazy?
Right.
Provide me with the stuff and get it done."
Yep.
And that would not have had the
No.
result that we wanted.
Right.
They just would have stopped communicating with us,
Mhm.
and it would have been contentious.
Mhm.
Okay, so remember, guys, focus on the big picture rather
Mhm.
than getting bogged down in the small details.
Mhm.
Keep your eye on the ultimate goal and prize of getting the deal done and find a solution that works for everyone.
Yes. And finally, one of the another way to manage ego is in the spirit of it all is to find a solution that really does satisfy everyone. Um, we can always talk about the win-win situation and then everybody is happy. Ultimately, you know that the other end of the stick is that it just doesn't get done. It's either it gets done or
Mhm.
it doesn't get done. So would you rather have a deal in place or no deal at all?
That's a good point. Well, that's all the time we have for today, you guys. You know what, though? I think we'd love to hear from you. We would love to hear from you in, a scenario where you were dealing with clients or another agent, possibly, where ego came up. Would love to hear on how you constructively dealt with that scenario. Um,
I think it's really hard. I just want to also add that it is part of like our human nature and there are so many words like narcissism, defensiveness, lack of empathy that we really need to be aware of and it's such a huge topic. So this is just again being more self-aware of your own ego so that it
mm,
doesn't show up in the wrong places and or at all. So that way you're just living a little bit more of a peaceful peaceful life and a peaceful mind.
Peaceful life and peaceful mind are the goal.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.